Welcome to the second edition of Clearing the Bases. Once again, my name is Anthony Sosa, and with me is my co-host Will Felton. Let's jump into it right away with our first segment, What's New? And speaking of new, we got the newest member of the MLB, newest member of the Houston Astros, Carlos Correa, who just made his major league debut on Monday. He got a knock, he got an RBI, he faced Chris Sale, one of the toughest lefties in the game, and I mean, he was on that night getting 14 strikeouts. But he did a good job. He did strike out once. But Will, what do you think about Correa?
I think he's a great player. 5 tools, overall first draft pick in 2012. And I think he's going to help the Astros out a lot by getting on base, hitting for average and power. But as we talked about last time, the Astros have a lot of power hitters, but they need some guys who are just willing to get on base and hit for a high average. And Correa's one of those guys. He's a 5-tool player. He does it all defensively, offensively. He's going to be a great fit for them.
Yeah, speaking of defense, he made a great play. He ranged to his left, ball up the middle, looked like a for sure hit, but he got to it and then gunned out Adam Eaton at first base, who's arguably one of the fastest guys in the game. So it's going to be fun to see this guy develop and grow into a good Major League Baseball player. And moving on, we're going to talk about the newest pitcher for the Oakland Athletics, Pat Venditti. And the interesting thing about this guy is he's a switch pitcher. His first switch pitcher we've seen since 1995. That guy, Greg A. Harris, he only faced one batter where he threw left-handed. The rest of his career, he was right-handed. And you have to go all the way back to 1894 to find a declared switch pitcher. 121 years, and it wasn't even in the modern era. So, well, what do you think about Venditti?
I think it's safe to say that he's the most intriguing player in the major leagues right now. We've never seen something like this before, an ambidextrous pitcher. That's awesome. And the most interesting part of his debut is his last batter that he faced was Blake Swihart of the Red Sox. And he's a switch hitter, so we had a switch pitcher versus a switch hitter. And they actually recently made a rule for Venditti called the Venditti rule. And it states that if something like that were to occur, the pitcher has to declare which arm he's going to throw with, and then the hitter can decide which way he's going to bat. So Venditti said, I'll throw right-handed. Swihart said, I'll bat left-handed. And Venditti went on to strike him out to end his outing. So it was a great first outing for him, very intriguing. We'll have to see how he does in the future. And a very interesting thing about him is, he's not great from either side. So if he was, say, either a righty or a lefty, he wouldn't probably not be in the major leagues.
Yeah.
But the fact that he can do it both ways, that's awesome. Congratulations for him. That got him to the major leagues. Yeah. That's awesome.
And maybe that'll open up some new pitchers thinking about pitching from both sides. I mean, it's interesting. Like in his debut, 2 innings, only gave up 1 hit, struck out a guy. So, he's going to be a fun guy to watch, and I think he's going to help that A's bullpen who has been struggling. Moving on, we're going to talk about Justin Verlander, who's going to make his starting debut on the season on Saturday against the Cleveland Indians. And Verlander is going to join a rotation that's really struggled. They have good guys, but they just haven't been able to get it done. They're 18th in the league in starter ERA. How much do you think Verlander is going to help this rotation?
Yeah, I think he can help rotation, but will he? Maybe a little bit. The guys that he's coming in to replace aren't great, so I think if Verlander can have a good year for his standards, he's not going to be that signing pitcher he was, or MVP pitcher. He's getting older and everything, not as much velocity, but I think if he has a pretty good year, he can help the Tigers out with his experience and everything. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, when you get Justin Verlander back, I don't really see the ERA really getting worse. You're probably going to take Shane Green out of the rotation possibly, or somebody who hasn't really been pitching much. So I think he's going to help. But I don't know, like you said, how big of a help it's really going to be.
Exactly.
So we're going to move on to our second segment now. We're going to talk about the Major League Draft. Dansby Swanson was drafted first overall to the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's a shortstop out of Vanderbilt, one of the 3 Vanderbilt players taken in the first round, which is pretty incredible. That team won the College World Series last year and is still in the College World Series this year with a shot. So, well, what do you think about the MLB draft?
I think so far it's been a good draft. Dansby Swanson, the first overall pick out of Vanderbilt, along with David Price a few years ago, and so that's some good company to be with.
Definitely.
And it was a great day for Dansby Swanson. His team had just clinched their playoff berth in the College World Series, and about 10 minutes later, they're still in the field. They took out a phone. The whole team was gathered around Swanson watching the draft, and they weren't sure if he was going to be the first overall, but they were right there watching it, and he got announced by the commissioner, and they went crazy. It was a great scene, great 10 minutes for that guy.
Can't imagine that feeling.
That's awesome. And a very intriguing player who got drafted was Brady Aiken, who was the first overall pick last year by the Astros, and they saw something in his arm that didn't look too right, and so they didn't sign him. He ended up being the 17th overall pick by the Cleveland Indians this year, and what they saw in Brady Aiken's elbow last year was actually a good call, because in his second start at his college, he went down with Tommy John surgery, and he's still recovering. So that was a great call by the Astros. Good thing they saw that, or else they'd be really disappointed. And so they also saved some money by not signing him and everything. So we'll see how he comes about after his Tommy John at such a young age. But he's a hard-throwing lefty, and he could be a great player.
Right, yeah, and recovering from Tommy John surgery usually actually improves players. I mean, he was throwing 97 as a lefty back in his high school days. I mean, that's unheard of. So, I mean, if he comes back throwing even harder, that's going to be scary, because most lefties are soft throwers usually. But I think Aiken's going to develop into a good ball player if he can recover. And also, kind of a fun note is a bunch of guys being drafted are former major leaguers' sons. You got Daz Cameron, Mike Cameron's son. You got Mariano Rivera Jr. You got Tyler Nevin, Phil Nevin's son. So there's a bunch of guys. There's actually a handful of them that had dads that were in the big leagues. So what do you think about that, Will?
I think that's a definite advantage for them, growing up around the game in the clubhouse and whatnot. I mean, that's a great advantage to have. You know exactly what to expect. You know how hard it is. First-hand experience from your dad. He can teach you a lot. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see what kind of careers they can have. And we also, it's pretty interesting, we know some guys that are in the draft this year.
Yeah.
And you got just one guy just got drafted today, 7th round by the Diamondbacks, Francis Christie, who we played against in high school, in Casa Grande High School in Petaluma. And I faced him once. He hit a ball almost out of here against me. He was caught at the warning track. I mean, if we were playing at Costa's home field, it probably would have been a home run, but I got kind of lucky. But Sosa, you had a pretty interesting experience facing him too. Sosa was a pitcher. We were both pitchers. And so tell us about your experience against Francis Christie.
Yeah, he took me deep at Costa's field. Actually, we were leading in the game. I came in to close it, and he hit a home run to tie the game to start off the inning. It was pretty deflating at the time, but to say now that I gave up a home run to a guy that got drafted 196th overall, I mean, not too many people can say that. So, I mean, I feel honored, kind of.
That's kind of cool, yeah. We know a few more guys. 2 guys that went to our alma mater, Rancho Cotati High School. We got C.O.C. Pody at a league university in Tennessee, and he is looking to get drafted, hopefully maybe by the Reds later in the draft.
Speed right there.
He's gonna fly.
Speed.
A lot of stolen bases. I think he has the record at Santa Rosa Junior College for most stolen bases in a year.
Yes.
And we also got Brent Gillespie at a Youngstown State in Ohio. And I played with him my sophomore year on varsity at Rancho, and he's a great guy, great player. And hopefully he'll get selected late in the late rounds. If not, they'll be an independent ball. But I hope they get drafted. So good luck to them, and we'll be keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, congrats to Christie, and hopefully we do get to see those guys get drafted, because it's always fun to see guys that you played with or played against get drafted. Moving on to our last segment, though, it's going to be how do you feel? And we're going to talk about how we feel about these 2 topics. So the first topic is on a very controversial one, Alex Rodriguez, who just recently passed Barry Bonds to become second on the all-time RBI list behind Hank Aaron, and with his 1,997th RBI against the Angels on Friday night. He's also passed Willie Mays this season to become 4th on the all-time home runs list, and he's only 9 hits away from 3,000. So, I mean, this is a guy that's obviously got PED suspensions and accusations. Well, how do you feel about A-Rod with all that?
I just don't feel the same as I have in the past. Growing up seeing Bonds pass all these records, I mean, yeah, maybe he took PEDs, or, I mean, he did, but at the time, nobody was thinking about that. Nobody really knew. So it was really spectacular to see such history happen. And, with Derek Jeter recently, it was an honor to see those guys play.
Yeah.
But, now with A-Rod, I mean, that he's been on steroids since the beginning of his career with the Rangers and with the Yankees even just 2 years ago. It just doesn't feel the same. I can't be as excited. I mean, I don't dislike the guy, but I just can't give him that much credit. I can't be too excited about it. I mean, it just doesn't feel the same to me.
I completely agree. I mean, when he does get his 3,000 hit, which it will come probably within the next 2 weeks or so, we're going to see the 29th person to ever do it in the big leagues. And when Derek Jeter did it and he was number 28th, I mean, we were all happy. I mean, as baseball fans, everybody was congratulating him, and it was a big deal. When A-Rod does it, I don't think he's going to get that big of a commemoration. It's not going to be as big of a highlight, and it's because of these PED accusations and the asterisk by his name. He, I don't personally dislike him, like you said, but I mean, I don't know. It's tough to root for a guy with all this kind of drama behind it.
Exactly.
Um, our other topic is going to be on the Kansas City Royals, and their All-Star team. Uh, and the third ballot just came out, released for the AL and NL. And the Kansas City Royals have 7 starters right now, and 2 guys that are right behind the leaders. So potentially we could see a Royals versus National League All-Star game, which is a complete joke, in my opinion. And I think you agree with me, Will.
Definitely. I mean, this is ridiculous. They should have maybe 2 to 3 starters, but to have
Deserving.
7 right now and possibly 8 or even 9, that's unreal. Like, that's terrible. It's not good for baseball.
It's
And
not.
the thing is, we have this honor as fans, like baseball fans, that we get to vote on who gets to start the All-Star game. And if this happens, this mockery and just this joke actually occurs, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, might just take that honor away from us fans, and that would be terrible thing. So, I mean, everybody needs to vote. I'm going to vote, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have anything against those Royals players, but that's just not right. There's way better guys who should be starting the All-Star game. I mean, Kendrys Morales just passed Nelson Cruz. He should definitely be starting with his numbers that he's putting up this year. And even for the Giants, Aoki, who played for the Royals last year, is like 4th in the National League in the outfield race. And with Matt Holliday just getting hurt, he could be a starter too. I don't know if he deserves that. The Royals fans, I don't really get it. I mean, stop. Like other fans need to vote, and I don't want this voting privilege to go away, because that's what it is. It's a privilege.
Exactly, and it surprises me because the Royals went to the World Series last year, and that's when they picked up a lot of their fans. And this year they started out good, but is that really the reason why you're going to vote in all of your team? I mean, I understand that you like your players and you want to see your team in there as much as you can, but to get the whole team there, it's not going to be fun. It's really not. And I mean, Eric Hosmer over Miguel Cabrera. I mean, let's be real. That's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, I think the commissioner will definitely do something about it. And I think he's either going to take the fan voting away overall, or he's just going to make the backups do it. He could also make it to where you take the top 3 guys, maybe for each position, or for the outfielder, maybe top 6, and have them vote that way. Because that's the only way it seems fair to me if the Royals fans are going to be doing that. But we'll see how it goes. There's still some time before the All-Star game. I think it'll change. So that about wraps up the second edition of Clearing the Bases. And we would like you guys to maybe follow us on Twitter.
Definitely.
My Twitter handle is _A_Sos27, and Will's is Felton6. We'd like to thank you for watching this show, and we're signing off.
Thanks, guys.